Colonel Potter, sir, my last wish is to be buried in my mother's wedding gown.
I've seen these Dodgers for 40 years, all the tricks. Dismiss!
Before death, Loretta Swit confirmed the real reasons the cast left MASH each the smiling faces hid silent goodbyes. When viewers watched MASH every week, what they saw was a team of doctors and nurses laughing, working together, and saving lives. In the middle of war, the show was filled with comedy, warmth, and emotion. It felt like a family. Fans across the world grew to love the characters deeply, but behind those smiling faces and heartfelt scenes, there were private struggles. Some cast members were unhappy, others felt ignored or left out. There were creative fights, clashes of ego, and quiet decisions to leave. And while fans saw a tight-knit group on screen, behind the scenes was a different story. One of the stars, Loretta Swit, who played Major Margaret, Hot Lips Houlihan, was always known for being loyal and private, but near the end of her life, she finally opened up. For years, she had stayed quiet out of love and respect for her co-stars. But as time passed and fans kept wondering why some actors left the show early, she decided to reveal the truth. Her words were kind, but honest, and they gave a rare look at what really happened behind the scenes of one of TV's most beloved shows. MASH wasn't just a TV show, it was history. MASH wasn't just another television show. It became part of American culture, airing from 1972 to 1983. It told the story of doctors and nurses working in a mobile army surgical hospital. During the Korean War, the show mixed comedy with real pain, laughter with heartbreak. That's what made it special. It was based on a 1970 movie, which came from a 1968 novel by Richard Hooker. But the series brought these stories to life in a way that touched millions. Fans didn't just watch MASH, they felt it. They cried when characters left. They laughed at the wild jokes. They loved the way the show balanced serious topics like death and war with human kindness. Alan Alda, as Hawkeye Pierce, led the show with his charm and wit. Wayne Rogers played Trapper John. Loretta Swit gave strength and soul to Major Houlihan. Other beloved characters included Colonel Blake, Radar, Klinger, and Father Mulcahy. As the show went on, new faces appeared, but the heart of the series stayed strong. Even the final episode, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, became one of the most watched in TV history. But what fans didn't know was that the real drama was happening off camera. Loretta Swit's early life and passion for acting. Loretta Swit was more than just hot lips. She was a talented actress with a rich background. Born on November 4, 1937, in Passaic, New Jersey, she grew up in a hard-working Polish American family. Even as a child, Loretta was full of energy and dreams. She became a cheerleader, acted in school plays, and joined the Girl Scouts. After finishing high school in 1955, she studied at the famous Catherine Gibbs School and later began working as a secretary. But behind that office desk, Loretta had a secret dream. She wanted to act. She trained in acting with top coaches in New York City, took singing lessons, and even studied dance. Her passion was strong, and she never gave up. In the 1960s and 70s, she worked in theater, touring in plays and performing with stars like Don Rickles and Ernest Borgnine. In 1969, she moved to Hollywood and began landing TV roles in shows like Gunsmoke, Hawaii Five-0, and Mission Impossible. When she joined MASH, it changed her life forever. The role of Major Houlihan became her signature, but it also came with a front row seat to the backstage tension that would unfold. Becoming Hot Lips and making the role her own when MASH started, Loretta Swit's character, Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, was strict, serious, and a bit uptight. She followed the rules and often clashed with the other doctors. In the early seasons, she had a secret romance with Major Frank Burns, which brought comedy and chaos to the screen. But as the show grew, so did her character. Margaret became kinder, more thoughtful, and much more real. Loretta Swit helped guide that transformation. She gave Margaret a heart. Swit believed that even in war, people grow. By the end of the series, Margaret had real friendships and showed compassion to her fellow nurses and the Korean people. Loretta wasn't just playing a role, she was helping shape it, and fans noticed. She won the Emmy Awards and was one of only 4 actors to appear in every season. She became close friends with many of her castmates, especially Alan Alda and Harry Morgan. But even as the show succeeded, trouble was brewing off camera. Loretta often found herself trying to calm tensions and keep the peace. She loved the show deeply, but she couldn't stop the changes that were happening behind the scenes. The rise of Alan Alda and growing tensions. Alan Alda was the star of MASH*, and no one doubted his talent. He was charming, funny, and thoughtful. But as the seasons went on, some cast members felt he was becoming too powerful. Alda didn't just act, he also wrote and directed many episodes. Slowly, the show began to focus more and more on his character, Hawkeye. What had started as an ensemble cast began to feel like the Alan Alda show. Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John, had signed on thinking his character would be equal to Hawkeye. But over time, he felt pushed to the side. Rogers quietly grew frustrated and decided to leave after season 3. His exit was quick, and the writers didn't even give his character a proper goodbye on screen. McLean Stevenson, who played Colonel Blake, also felt stuck. He wanted to grow and try other roles, but the show wouldn't let him, so he left too. His character's sudden death was one of the most shocking moments in television. Behind the scenes, writers and actors sometimes clashed. There were even jokes about setting episodes in freezing weather, so actors wouldn't argue over their lines. Loretta Swit tried her best to stay loyal to everyone, but she couldn't ignore the tension. McLean Stevenson's painful goodbye. McLean Stevenson's departure hit fans hard. His character, Colonel Henry Blake, was warm, funny, and deeply loved. But behind his smile, McLean was unhappy. He felt that while the character was popular, he himself was being overlooked. In an interview years later, he admitted, "I thought people loved McLean Stevenson, but they loved Henry Blake." It was a sad realization. He hoped to come back to the show someday, maybe for guest appearances. But the writers had other plans. When Blake was killed off in the show, it shocked fans across the country. No one expected such a heartbreaking ending. Loretta Swit later said that Stevenson felt unappreciated and sidelined. He wanted to grow as an actor and explore new things, but the show moved on without him. Stevenson's story is a reminder that even in the most loved shows, actors struggle with feeling valued. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing respect. And sadly, he never again found a role that matched the love fans had for Colonel Blake. Wayne Rogers' quiet exit and hurt feelings. Wayne Rogers' exit was quieter than Stevenson's, but it hurt just as much. Rogers played Trapper John, Hawkeye's close friend and partner. Their chemistry was a huge part of what made MASH* funny and special. But Rogers began to feel like his character was disappearing. The show was focusing more and more on Hawkeye, and Trapper became just a sidekick. Rogers had joined the show thinking it would be a team effort. When that changed, he decided to leave. He refused to sign a long-term contract and simply walked away. His departure wasn't even shown on screen. His character was just gone in the next season. Loretta Swit later said that she understood his decision. It was hard watching her friends leave, but she knew they were hurt. Rogers wanted more than just laughs. He wanted to be part of the show's heart. When he lost that, he left. It's another example of how fame doesn't always bring happiness, especially when creative voices are ignored. Loretta Swit's loyalty and final words: while others left, Loretta Swit stayed. Through 11 seasons and 256 episodes, she remained the heart of MASH*. She missed only a handful of episodes and never gave up on the show she loved. She formed real friendships with her co-stars and stayed close to them even after the show ended. She was proud of the characters she helped shape and the stories they told together. In her final years, she spoke openly about the behind-the-scenes struggles. She admitted the set wasn't always a happy place, but she always tried to bring peace. She spoke about the emotional work it took to stay, especially when others were leaving. Her words weren't bitter, they were honest. She talked about how much she missed her friends and how proud she was of what they all created together. Loretta Swit didn't just play a role, she lived it, and before she passed, she gave fans one final gift: the truth. Her honesty helped us understand the people behind the characters. It reminded us that even great shows are made by real people with real emotions. And thanks to Loretta, we now know the story behind the goodbye. Before her death, Loretta Swit revealed the real reasons the cast left MASH*. It's not every day that a television show becomes a part of people's lives in such a deep and lasting way. MASH was one of those rare shows, set during the Korean War but airing during the Vietnam era. It balanced laughter with tears, offering both sharp wit and deep emotion. One of its brightest stars was Loretta Swit, who played Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan. Over time, her character evolved from a tough, one-note figure into a deeply human and complex woman. Loretta stayed with the show from beginning to end, watching friends and co-stars come and go. Before her passing in 2025, she spoke openly about what really happened behind the scenes of the show. She revealed the truth about why so many of her fellow actors chose to leave MASH *, and her words offer an emotional, eye-opening look at a beloved piece of television history. Wayne Rogers, who played the charming and clever trapper John, was one of the first major stars to leave MASH * when the show began. Trapper was meant to be a leading figure, much like he was in the original book and film. But as time went on, Alan Alda's character, Hawkeye Pierce, became the focus of more episodes and took on more serious storylines, including those related to surgery areas. Where Trapper should have shined, Wayne started to feel like a side character on a show he had helped make successful. There were also problems with his contract. He wanted more creative input and better pay, but the producers weren't willing to negotiate. Eventually, Wayne made the difficult decision to leave. Despite all the tension, he and Alan Alda remained close friends. Alda even gave a heartfelt speech at Wayne's funeral, showing that their bond had always been stronger than any on-set drama. For Wayne, walking away was not about bitterness, it was about wanting more than the show was giving him. Another unforgettable character was Major Frank Burns, played by Larry Linville. Frank was written as a rigid, mean-spirited man who constantly found himself the target of jokes. He played the villain, often embarrassing himself in front of both staff and patients. At first, Linville embraced the role, but after 5 seasons, he began to feel that Frank was stuck. Unlike other characters, Frank never grew or changed. Linville said in interviews that he had done everything he could with the character. When his 5-year contract ended, the producers offered him more money to stay, but he turned them down. He wanted roles that would allow him to grow as an actor and not be remembered only as Frank Burns. Even though he left quietly and the show never gave Frank a proper goodbye, Linville's decision was respected by his co-stars. He went on to have a steady acting career, showing up in guest spots on shows like Chips and The Rockford Files. Larry Linville's exit was a sign that sometimes even success isn't enough when a role offers no room to grow. One of the most emotional exits from MASH * came from Gary Berghoff, who played the sweet and innocent Radar O'Reilly. Radar was one of the most beloved characters on the show, known for his childlike charm and big heart, but behind the scenes, Gary was struggling. By the time he left in 1979, Gary was almost 40 years old, but still playing a character who was supposed to be a teenager. That alone was exhausting, but there was more. Gary felt burned out by the grueling filming schedule, and he missed his family deeply. He also didn't get along well with everyone on set. Biographies later revealed that he had fierce arguments with other cast members, and some even said he was difficult to work with. Still, many respected his professionalism. When Gary finally chose to leave, it was because he needed peace, rest, and to be with the people he loved. His final episode, Goodbye, Radar, was as heartfelt and complex as his real-life departure. It wasn't just about leaving a role, it was about saving himself from breaking under the weight of it all. Alan Alda's role in all this can't be ignored. While he began as just another actor on the show, his influence grew quickly. He started writing episodes, then directing, and eventually had a strong voice in the show's overall direction. Under his guidance, MASH * became more serious, more emotional, and more focused on real-world issues. Critics praised the change, and the show won awards and continued its success. But not everyone behind the scenes was happy. Some cast members felt that the show had become the Alan Alda show, focusing more on Hawkeye than the ensemble feel they started with. While many admired Alda's leadership and artistic vision, others felt pushed aside. The balance they once had seemed to be fading. For some, that shift was one reason they chose to walk away. Loretta Swit, however, remained close to Alda and always spoke kindly of him. She said he was nothing like the bitter Hawkeye he sometimes portrayed. He was thoughtful, supportive, and a dear friend. Still, his growing influence reshaped the show in ways not everyone was comfortable with. For Loretta Swit herself, the journey through MASH * was one of both triumph and quiet struggle. When the show began, her character Margaret Houlihan was written as little more than comic relief, loud, flirtatious, and often the punchline in jokes. Loretta didn't like that. She wanted Margaret to be taken seriously as a woman and a military officer. After Larry Linville left the show, Loretta saw a chance to evolve the character. She worked closely with producers to give Margaret more dignity and depth, making her one of the most developed characters by the end of the series. Swit also confirmed in later interviews what many fans had suspected. She said Wayne Rogers left because he wasn't being used properly. McLean Stevenson left to try for a leading role elsewhere, and Larry Linville had grown tired of playing a one-note villain. As for Gary Berghoff, Swit said his exit was a mix of emotional exhaustion and personal issues, while she stayed with the show through it all. Loretta admitted it wasn't easy. She often felt alone, especially as one of the few women on set, and even missed out on career opportunities because the show wouldn't let her go outside of MASH*. Loretta Swit led a beautiful and meaningful life. She had short-lived romances, and one marriage to actor Dennis Houlihan, who appeared on the show in a guest role. The marriage didn't last, but Loretta remained hopeful and focused on what truly mattered to her. One of her greatest passions was animal welfare. Long before it became popular, Loretta spoke out against animal cruelty and adopted a vegan lifestyle. She wasn't doing it for attention, it was something she believed in with all her heart. She also had a creative side that surprised many fans. She loved needlepoint and even published a book called A Needlepoint Scrapbook, which included her designs and personal reflections. It was a quiet, tender side of a woman who spent years fighting for her place in a loud, male-dominated industry. Loretta passed away on May 30th, 2025, at the age of 87. She died peacefully in her New York City home, leaving behind a powerful legacy of strength, compassion, and honesty. MASH* wasn't just a TV show. It was a cultural milestone that shaped how stories were told on television. It tackled big subjects like death, war, trauma, and healing, all with humor and heart. The actors who left did so for personal reasons, but each of their exits added layers to the show's meaning. Wayne Rogers wanted to be more than a sidekick. Larry Linville needed to play a man who could grow. Gary Berghoff was protecting his mental health and family. Behind it all was Loretta Swit, steadfast, strong, and always ready to tell the truth. She reminded us that real life, like great storytelling, is filled with both joy and pain. Her honesty about why her castmates left shows that even in Hollywood, it's not always about fame. Sometimes, it's about choosing peace, respect, and self-worth over applause.